It's like, ooh, ow, that hurt. Why'd that hurt? Wait a minute. Why'd that hurt? Oh, that was a trigger. Triggers are the pathway to healing. What within me needs to be healed? What within me needs to be healed? And that's what I want to talk about today. When I was sharing about life happening for me, one of the topics that came up around that is triggers and how they can be a pathway to healing. I had recently watched a video from some of my favorite mentors, Lucas Mack, Tracy L. Clark. You can find them both here on YouTube. Incredible people to listen to learn and grow with and grow from. So I was listening to a class that they were doing one day, and one of them had mentioned triggers are the pathway to healing. And it was like this light bulb went off. I was like, oh my gosh, yes, triggers are a pathway to healing. Healing what? The heart, the mind, the body, the soul. If you think about triggers, and I was recently triggered like yesterday. I mean, honestly, we can be triggered every day, right? But I had a pretty big one yesterday that shook me and frustrated me and pissed me off. And, really sent me to a place where I was so frustrated. And this is where I'm going to talk about how and why I see triggers as a pathway to healing. When I recognize that I have a trigger, one of the things I will do is I will recognize that I'm angry. And when I'm angry, based on something that someone has said or done, maybe it's a facial expression or a tone. It could be something happening on the news or a movie or social media, something. It could be anything, right? It could be my son. He could do something. And boy, when I talk about triggers are the pathway to healing, he has mastered every trigger to support me in my healing. And I think that's his role. I think as children, that's our role, or that's their role. And I say I, because I am a kid too, or for my mom. But one of the things I look at is okay, I just got angry. How I cover up sadness and fear is with anger. So when I'm angry, I know in that moment, okay, I literally do this. I will feel the anger. I will see that I want to respond and react in that anger, and I will stop myself. And I'll have myself take a breath. And I've learned this from not stopping myself, right? I mean, we learn from our mistakes over time, hopefully. And I've made many mistakes. I've fallen down many times, but I just get right back up and keep moving. Once I have recognized that anger, I then ask myself, what is it within me that just got triggered? What is underneath the trigger? And with the example that occurred yesterday, I'll take this example. I had posted something in social media, something that I thought was helpful information for people who were looking at all options for a particular scenario. And it was a pretty important piece of information, I felt, because inside of the situation and the circumstance, it was one of the elements. And I posted something that had literally recently come across my desk. Somebody had shared it with me, and I was like, oh, that's very interesting. Very interesting. And, for me, I want to say, did it justify my choices that I've recently made about a decision that I made? I don't know if it justified it, but it definitely put it in a perspective where I thought, okay, I like this piece of information. It's just I see the universe as saying a reminder that, hey, the choice and the decision that you've made is actually is the right direction for you. Okay. There were interesting responses, and to the point to where I could recognize, okay, well, what was my intention in sharing the information based on what was being talked about? Was it that I was trying to get a point across? Maybe. And I won't even say maybe. Yes, there was a piece of information in there that I thought was critical and important. And I felt that everybody should give it a whirl. just a consideration. Yes. So I will stand and root in my selfness that yes, my intention was to share this bit of information because it was a piece of the whole. But what I noticed is the truth of what was underneath my trigger is that I was hurt. I was hurt by some of the comments. I was hurt by how people responded. And what it brought up for me is the feeling of not fitting in, not being a part of something. My input isn't of value. It's not of worth. Worth so much like it's not even open for discussion. Like it's not worth a damn. And that I'm not liked. I'm not loved. Those are all the triggers that I started seeing being triggered, okay? Which goes back to a very young time in childhood. And how I like to look at triggers is every trigger I have is somehow connected or stemmed from some point in my early years when there was a trauma, a circumstance, a situation, something was said to me, something was done to me, something didn't feel good. And that memory, physically, emotionally, mentally, is still stuck in my heart space and also connected to my mental space. And when that trigger gets hit, it's like a ripple effect within the body, right? If you know what I'm talking about, you might have experienced that at some time. It literally reverberates throughout the body. Like the button gets pushed and the waves just boom. And then you want to react, right? Fight or flight, gonna react. I see this as an opportunity to heal. My point is triggers are a pathway to healing and how I manage this. And I would love to hear from anyone who has experienced triggers at a minor level as well as a mass, huge, blew up, reacted in a crazy way level. How do you handle your triggers? Do you recognize them in the moment? Do you not? Do you run from them? Do you shy away from them? Do you blame someone else? Do you go to vices like shopping or drinking or sex or any form of addiction? You know, do you go towards those things? You know, what do you do? I know for me in the past, I definitely had shopping habits. Oh my God. At some time, when I was much younger, oh man, I would go definitely bury in some drinking or drugs. I'll admit it. Yep, did it. Those were how I handled things in the past. Today, I've done a lot of work on myself. So, you know, today I retreat and I reflect. You know, I share this because I feel it's so important. I feel it's so important when we can look at our triggers and begin to heal the wounded parts of ourselves. So going back to the wounded part of me, that sense of feeling like I don't belong, that I'm not liked, that I need to be the people pleaser, that I need to prove I'm likable. And all of that comes from like my 5, 6, 7-year-old child within, right? That's not who I am today. But I got to see that for myself, like, oh, that's what that's triggering. It's triggering that piece of me that feels like I'm not lovable or I'm not likable or that I need some form of validation that I'm okay to fit here. And when I recognized that, I was like, shit, I could give a rat's ass, really? I don't care. And when I say don't care, it isn't that I don't care for people. But if I don't fit in, or if people don't like me, or if people don't see anything that I bring is worth considering or of value, it's okay. It really is okay. And in that moment, I get to choose. So I think the point of this video is just me sharing the rawness of, you know, I got my feelings hurt yesterday. There were people involved that I really care about, that I really like, that I see as value. I see them as, you know, people I care about. And their responses had me feeling like, And here's the other thing, is that maybe they weren't even responding in the way that I saw it. And that's the downside of social media. Because how one comes across in a communication may not actually be the way the communication is coming across. So there's all of those things. And I thank you for, coming this far with me on this conversation. I think where I'd like to leave it is, there is opportunity in every trigger that you experience in your life. And when you have a trigger, there's an opportunity to heal. There's an opportunity to restore an aspect of your heart, to restore an aspect of your emotions, to restore an aspect of your mental experience, the physical, mental, emotional experience. There is aspects to restore and heal. And when you can recognize, own, trust, know, and believe that that trigger was perfectly designed for you to have, to experience, and then to ask yourself, what is underneath the trigger? What about that communication, that situation, that scenario just hurt my soul? What about it did? And when you can get to that, it's in those moments that we can say, okay, it's not the truth. I am lovable. I am likable. I don't need to please anyone. I am of value. I am worthy. I am honor. I am valiant, radiance, worthy, and known. I've said that in videos before. That is my I am statement. I am that. And when I know that, I no longer have to seek or receive that recognition from out here, because it's in here. And in that exchange that I had with those women in that scenario, gave me permission to remind myself, I do not seek validation out here. It is in here. I leave you with that, and I'm just curious, tell me more about how do triggers affect you? And do you even recognize them when they happen? Because I could tell you what, there were years that I would not recognize that it was a trigger. I would have it that I'm just pissed off, I'm right about it, and you're wrong. So thank you so much for sticking around this conversation. This channel really is about the rawness of truth, just getting down to the core of who you are, and me just sharing my journey. Hopefully it inspires, motivates, and activates somebody who is exploring that journey of self and their rawness of truth. And when we can uncover every aspect of the happenings that are happening for us, that's when we can keep pulling back those layers and being our truth and speaking the rawness of who we are. And that is my commitment to myself, to you, to my son. It is the commitment of truth. What is my truth? What is your truth? What is the world's truth? So let's all just stand in truth. And thank you so much for being here. I look forward to talking with you on the next video. And I just appreciate all the support. Share, like, subscribe, ring the bell notification, do it all. If this is what you're interested in talking about, I look forward to hanging out with you again. Have a fantastic day.